the CBS Broadcast Center in Los Angeles, this is CBS 2 News at 11 p.m.
It is a sickness to want to go into a community and care more about your own dreams, to have a huge mansion, than about a neighborhood.
Uproar tonight as dozens protest a billionaire's plans to tear down a historic African-American church in Venice to build a mega mansion. Good evening, everyone. This is the CBS 2 News team, and this is CBS 2 News at 11. CBS 2's Crystal Cruz is live with more from tonight's feisty meeting before the West LA Planning Commission. Crystal.
Hi, Pat. Feisty indeed. Many people say there's no place for a mega mansion in Venice, but the wealthy Penskes argue this area is used for a garbage dumping ground and they want to clean it up.
I would call it white privilege. Arrogance that says, I have the money, this is what I want, so I should be able to do it.
Naomi Nightingale can't believe Jay Penske, son of billionaire Roger Penske, wants to convert a 109-year-old closed African-American church in Venice into his 11,000 square foot mansion with a rooftop deck and 4-car garage.
This is ostentatious anywhere, even in Bel Air. It's especially ostentatious in Venice.
Wednesday night, dozens of neighbors waved signs sharing their concerns with the West LA Planning Commission.
It is a sickness to want to go into a community and care more about your own dreams, to have a huge mansion, than about a neighborhood.
Penske declined to interview with us, but his wife, former supermodel Elaine Irwin Penske, who was once married to John Mellencamp, spoke to the commission.
We've had extensive conversation, exchanges of email, calls, and meetings with community members and residents, often with multiple families, some individual. In addition, we've received numerous letters from the neighbors and the surrounding neighbors sharing their stories and offering support.
Some of them spoke in favor of the Penske's mansion.
These people are assets to the community. This building is an incredibly adaptive reuse of the existing structure.
And the people who live across the street are not going to see any difference than what was there before. If anything, they're going to see less traffic.
And the commission couldn't agree on a vote, and so they're postponing this meeting until August 15th, when they hope to have 5 commissioners. Tonight they only had 4, and the vote was split 2-2. I'm Crystal Cruz, live in West LA tonight. Back to you, Pat, in the studio.
All right, thank you for that, Crystal. Now breaking news, an abandoned commercial building in Compton goes up in flames. The fire broke out just after 9 in the 1100 block of Alameda Street East. Fire crews were on scene just moments later and quickly got things under control. No one was hurt. The cause of that fire is under investigation. Tonight, President Trump has temporarily halted the separation of children and immigrant parents who crossed the border illegally. The president signed an executive order allowing families to be held together for 20 days. After that, they must either be deported or separated. And that means Congress still has to act. Republican leaders are now considering 2 bills.
It's about keeping families together while at the same time being sure that we have a very powerful, very strong border.
The move came a day after the president met with GOP lawmakers and mounting pressure from his own family. Tonight, people from different faiths gathered in Orange County for a prayer vigil in honor of the families who have been separated at the border. CBS 2 Orange County reporter Stacey Butler is live with that story. Stacey.
Well, Pat, we are standing hundreds of miles from those shelters along the border, but tonight dozens gathered here at the Theo Lacey detention facility. They had one plan. They wanted their voices to be heard and let the children know that they are very much in their hearts. Tonight in Orange, they lit candles and prayed for the immigrant children still in shelters along the border, separated from their parents.
There are children caged in the name of freedom. We repent.
This small group, wearing ribbons to remember the kids, gathered to speak out.
They can't speak for themselves. We have to be their voices. And instead of being housed and being treated like refugees, they're actually re-traumatized and re-persecuted here in this country.
President Trump's new executive order prevents additional families seeking asylum from being separated at the border. But many are wondering what happens now to over 2,000 kids still in custody without their parents.
It doesn't say how they're going to be reconnected. It doesn't explain anything.
Immigration attorney Carolina Gomez says it's a question Health and Human Services hasn't answered yet. She says the immigrant kids could be released to other family members in the U.S. while their parents remain in detention.
The kids can be there a month or they could be there for 6 months.
Seeking asylum from a violent country is not illegal, says Gomez. Now, she hopes the executive order will mean that from now on, families will go through the process together.
If the immigration judge decides that they don't have enough for an asylum claim, then send them back together.
Now, the executive order doesn't explain how long the families will be detained or just what will happen to those who are right now still in custody. That's the very latest from Orange. Pat, back to you.
Thank you, Stacey. More breaking news. Police respond to a stabbing in Porter Ranch, and Stu Mundell is overhead in Sky 2. Stu.
That's right, Pat. Exclusive neighborhood out here, gated. It's going to be the 20,100 block of Sardinia. Now, LAPD arriving out here, they too are reported stabbing in this neighborhood. When they arrived here on scene, not sure exactly what was going on. We do know one person was taken to the hospital very quickly. A second person still being treated here on scene. LAPD is out here in force right now, and the word shots fired or was heard earlier on. Not sure who was shot or how that plays into the story right now. We do know large presence out here. One person taken to the hospital, second person being treated in the Porter Ranch area. Live in Sky 2, I'm Stu Mundell. Pat, back to you.
All right, thank you, Stu. Dramatic testimony now in a hearing today for the Paris couple accused of imprisoning and starving their 13 children. CBS 2's Tina Patel has the disturbing details heard in court today.
Louise and David Turpin showed very few emotions as they sat in the courtroom, not even reacting when the 911 call made by their 17-year-old daughter was played. That 17-year-old seen here in earlier YouTube videos had escaped from a front window of the family's Paris home in January, but she had trouble telling dispatchers her address because she hadn't been out much. She said she was worried about two of her little sisters who were chained up by their parents and tried to describe their living conditions. Quote, "I can't breathe because of how dirty the house is." That 17-year-old also told investigators that although much of the abuse came from her mother, her father tried to sexually assault her when she was 12. She said he pulled her pants down and put her on his lap, then told her not to tell anyone. In social media posts, the Turpin children are seen wearing matching clothing on trips to Las Vegas and Disneyland. But investigators showed very different photos in court, saying when the children were rescued, they were caked in dirt and wearing soiled undergarments. They say the children were rarely allowed to bathe. One girl saying that she changed her clothing to go out for Mother's Day, and when she came home, she was to put the same dirty, soiled clothing back on. As for the medical condition of the children, doctors found one of them had liver damage due to malnutrition. Another had a vitamin D deficiency and visible scoliosis. And an 11-year-old girl had a body weight percentile of just 0.01. Her upper arm the size of a 4.5-month-old baby. Although this case is supposed to be just about what happened when the family lived in Murrieta and Paris, some of what we heard means the allegations of abuse go back to when the family lived in Texas. Arguments are set to resume in the morning. In Riverside, Tina Patel, CBS 2 News.
Tonight, police are trying to track down two men who broke into a Pasadena home and viciously stabbed a man before taking off with cell phones, a computer, and cash. This is a sketch of one of those suspects that detectives are looking for. The home invasion happened Sunday morning on East Villa Street. Both men were armed with guns and knives. The 25-year-old stabbing victim is expected to be okay. Now, for the first time under a new policy, the LAPD released body cam video from a deadly incident. But critics claim the highly edited video of 24-year-old Jose Chavez's arrest and death does not tell the whole story. CBS 2's Tom Waite spoke with an attorney in the case and has reaction.
Need any medical attention or anything like that?
This is newly released LAPD body cam video, which shows officers trying to speak with Jose Chavez back on May 6th. It would be a 2-hour encounter, at the end of which Chavez was dead.
Don't reach into your pocket, bud.
At first, officers try speaking with Chavez. They say the 24-year-old does not respond, so officers change tactics.
Hey, stay right there, man.
They use tasers and beanbags. Ultimately, the 24-year-old is handcuffed. Chavez was having difficulty breathing and would die at the hospital. There are multiple body cams rolling. A total of 50 hours of footage was taken, but only 17 minutes was released to the public.
The entirety will not be released.
Chief Charlie Beck says the footage made public is what he and the police commission would use to make their decision about use of force.
The release of all the video is, particularly at this point, will not tell the whole story. I think that you have to release it in context, and that's what we do.
Well, in my opinion, the public is not getting the full picture.
The attorney for Chavez's family calls the LAPD's video heavily edited and highly produced.
This happened in 2 hours, and we get a snippet. We get snippets lasting several minutes, but not the full, complete picture.
Our legal analyst Steve Meister says the way the LAPD released this video is neither right nor wrong. He says this is an evolving policy. Reporting from South Pasadena, I'm Tom Waite, CBS 2 News.
Tourist in trouble. The hiker takes a swim and gets swept downstream. The daring CHP rescue all caught on camera.
A big shakeup is coming to California's cannabis industry. I'm Peter Dowd. Why there could soon be a pot shortage.
And the top 10 nicest places in America. One of them is right here in our own backyard. Find out which local area made the cut.
Hey everybody, I'm Garth Kemp, picking up some clouds already by LAX. Not going to go far inland, but we still have some heat to deal with. We'll explain it all to you coming up.
And here's a look at the guests tonight on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert.